Supplementary material for section 2.2 continued for the third time. Obviously not being very good today about watching that clock. So here we go. I got cut off in explaining the reduced fraction here. So I was talking about divisibility by 2's and 5's because we know 2,000 is divisible by only 2's and 5's. So we see that the 1,789 that we have up here in the numerator is not divisible by a 2 and it's not divisible by a 5, and therefore we didn't have to do any real amounts of work to get that thing reduced. Now our last one is the trickiest one, the 33 and a third, and this brings up the point that it's really useful to know conversions. So 33 and a third percent, remember, could have also been represented as 33.333, so on and so forth, percent. And that would have made it really tricky right there, because we have to be able to get back to a fraction, and if we don't know 0.33333 will get us back to a fraction, we end up having to round it off, and then we won't ever get back to the exact one. So as it stands, 33 and a third percent, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn 33 and a third into a mixed number, or improper fraction instead of a mixed number. Sorry about that. So our improper fraction representation of this, 3 times 33, which is 99, plus 1, which is 100, and that's 100 thirds. So now we have 100 thirds percent. Now remember that this is 100 thirds percent. Percent represents parts of 100. So I'm going to say this is 100, and that's thirds, and then that's parts of 100. So remember, a fraction bar also means division. So when I say that this means division, that says it's 100 thirds, and then multiplied by the reciprocal of 100, or divided by 100, which is the reciprocal of 100, which is 1 over 100. And therefore I'm going to get canceling with the hundreds, and I'm going to get a 1 in the numerator and a 3 in the denominator. And there's my fraction representation. Now that one is the trickiest one of all, which brings me to my final point, which is it's really nice to have a certain group of fraction to decimal conversions and hence to percentages memorized. So on this last page, what you see here is a bunch of different fractions that I believe it's really in your best interest to memorize. So first of all, we have our quarter ones. So we have 1/4, a half, and 3/4. Those are just money. You know how much money a quarter is worth. It's worth 25 cents, right? You know a $50 is 50 cents, and you know 3/4, that's 75 cents. No big deal. Then the next one that it's really good for you to know is your eighth. So 1/8 is a half of a quarter, and half of a quarter is 1.125. or 12.5 cents if you're thinking about it in money. And then of course, always going from a decimal to a percentage, remember that you're moving the decimal place 2 places to the right to get these percentages. No big deal. Okay, now the next grouping that's important to know, you'll notice for some reason there got to be a little gap in here. So 1/8 and 7/8. 7/8 is good to know too. All of your eighths, you can't really go wrong with memorizing those. But remember, the eighths are stuck between the quarters up here, so you can just add on those. Now I'm almost out of time, so the 1/5, 4/5, 3/5, and 2/5 here, out of order again, strange. These go 2, 4, 6, and 8. And the numerator, if you tack on a 0 and divide them, you'll get those very easily. The 1/3, 2/3, those are also excellent to have memorized. 0.333, so on and so forth. 0.666, so on and so forth. And last, the ninths pattern is really important, and the third and the 2/3 are actually a pattern of the ninths. And the pattern on the ninths is whatever the numerator is, it's a repeating decimal. So 1/9, repeat the 1s. 2/9, repeat the 2s. 4/9, repeat the 3s. 1/3 is actually 3/9, and 2/3 is actually 6/9. So that's where those patterns come from. And the last one here, 1/6, is also good to know. 0.16666 repeating. And so